What up, everyone? Back for another video. Gonna do a quick little movie review and get a discussion going. As always with my videos, it's not all about hearing me talk. I love to hear your opinions too. That's part of what this is, a discussion. I want to hear your opinions down in the comments and possibly get a discussion going. So I'd like to thank all the people that do frequently comment. I do really appreciate that. So it's nice to get that going. So please always feel like your opinion is valued here and feel like this is always a place you can come and talk about your feelings. Well, talk about the movie. Maybe save feelings for another time. But anyway, we got Thor, Love and Thunder. I'm gonna talk about some things I did like, some things I didn't like, and then give it my overall rating, and then you can let me know your thoughts in the comments. First of all, I was talking to my friends after the movie that are in a similar related field that I work in like the kind of comic book industry. And they bring up some really good points. And something I thought I'd bring up, when I give my scores, I try to give a score based on what I think the general population would think. I think people like you and me, the general nerd, tends to like or dislike things on a different scale than the average person was. So when I rate things, I kind of rate it on a scale that if anyone went and saw that movie, what would they think of it? Now, that's what I think is a good movie versus an entertaining movie. There are movies that are very entertaining, like a lot of comedies are entertaining, but I wouldn't say that's a necessarily good movie, but I would say it's entertaining, that I enjoyed it. So I just want to differentiate between the two. It sounds very similar, but it's different things. So good movie, what I tried to give the rating on, versus just entertainment. And I bring that up specifically for this movie because it was very entertaining. But I don't personally think that it was a genuinely good movie. It wasn't bad, I'm not going to say that, but we'll talk about that more when I get to the score. Some things I didn't like about it. One, it was very fast-paced, and pacing in a movie is very important. And what I mean by that, it's basically the timing of the sequence of events, the space in between major events. I felt like this movie was very fast-paced. It was a very short movie. I think it was only about an hour and a half, which is fine, but there was a lot of story that needed to be told, and that's a little too short of a window there. Starting out with the very beginning of the movie with Gore, his whole backstory was like a quick 3-minute scene. It was just very quickly went through the whole thing. First he was a father, then his daughter died, then he finds the gods, then he finds the sword, then he changes his mind. Like, so many things happen in such a short amount of time. They really could have embellished more on that. It felt so overlooked because it was such a quick little scene. And we're talking about the whole backstory of the villain. I feel like they could have gone into it just a little more, spent a little more time to really develop that character because it just went by so fast. And it was Christian Bale. What a wasted opportunity. I would say as much screen time as you can give him, the better, because he's just such an amazing actor, and he really could have gone and done more with that character had he gotten more screen time. That brings me to my next point, which is that there wasn't a lot of depth to it. There wasn't enough time to develop these characters out, so there really wasn't a lot of connection to them. And obviously with any of my videos, spoiler alert, but the way that Jane Foster died in the end, so much of it, you barely had a time to really connect and get attached to these characters because they were just so gone so quickly. They could have spent so much more time with that, and I just think there wasn't enough depth there. Same with the actors. There's just such a short amount of time for such huge names there, like Christian Bale, Natalie Portman, Russell Crowe, some of the greatest actors of our time that they didn't really use them as much as they could. It was just a lot of it was just kind of goofy, so it's like, well, if that's the direction you're going with the movie, then why hire such high-profile actors? Why hire such talent for that if you're just going to do some fun, playful stuff? Why not just get someone cheaper? It just doesn't seem to make sense. So overall, the movie was very funny. It was a really funny movie, and that's what I was expecting. So I'm definitely pleased in that sense. The trailers definitely portrayed that. There was a lot of jokes to be made, but I felt at times that it went too overboard with that because maybe this just is a comedy movie, but I don't think most Marvel movies would say they're comedies even though they have jokes, but this one felt like it because they were just making jokes the whole time. It's like every character had to do or say something funny at some point, with the exception of, I think Gore was the only one, but everyone else was making jokes all over the place, and it's like, that's a little too much. There usually is comedy relief in any movie So there's usually just one character that's the comic relief. And it seemed like in this movie, everyone was the comic relief. So they were just all making jokes all the time, and it just felt like too much. I think they needed to be more serious at times, that they just were a little too fast-paced and a little too funny with it. I wish there was more Guardians. I'm so bummed they weren't in it more. I knew they weren't going to be in it a lot. I knew that right from the get-go. Just thinking logistically, it would have cost way too much money to get that whole cast in the movie for a long time, because they have to pay them all individually. So I assumed they would play a very small role, but I also assumed they would come back in the end. I thought we'd at least see them again at the second part. I figured they'd be at the very beginning and the very end, and that makes sense. They're not taking up the story. They wouldn't have to be paid a lot, but that would make it more well-rounded, and they were just at the beginning, which I thought was so odd, especially at the point when Thor didn't have Jane Foster to fight with and didn't have Valkyrie, that he had no one else. I'm like, oh, well, here comes the Guardians. He's going to go get them, help them fight, but he didn't. So I thought that was very odd, and it just seemed pointless to have them in the beginning then. Like, it was, I know that's where Thor left off, but usually when they have characters, they become part of the story, but they were just kind of there and didn't really serve any purpose, which again, just seemed like an odd choice. I was very surprised that Jane died at the end of this movie. Now, I know in the comics she does die, so I'm not saying I'm surprised it happened. I knew she was going to, but I just figured she'd be around for a while. It was such a lead up. She's been in it since Thor 1, which was like, what was that, 2010? So all this time leading up to her becoming Thor, she finally gets that, and then she's already gone. I just am very surprised by that. I thought they'd have her around for a few films, and then maybe she would kind of die off at some point, but I was just very surprised already. Just come and gone. That's a bummer. So she may not be done for good. That after credits scene made it seem like she'll still appear, but I guess just not as Thor. But I don't know. Very surprised by that. Not necessarily a bad thing, but just kind of surprising. And my friend brought up a few points that he felt that it was very kiddie at times, that they're gearing things more towards kids. And he's right, and they absolutely are, and that's something that you're going to have to, I told him, you're just going to have to get used to that, because that's kind of the direction they're going. I think it was Kevin Feige or someone explained it pretty well that, yeah, that's the market they're targeting. It's not that the movies aren't for adults as well, but they already have us. They really don't need to convince us to see the movies. They really already have us part of it. We're not just going to not start seeing these movies all of a sudden. So they already have us locked in. So they're always going to be trying to bring in the next generation. So they're always going to have things in there for a younger crew. And they did that a lot in this movie. There are various times where I thought it was very kiddie and childish, and it's fine. It's fine for movies to do that every once in a while, but again, I feel like they did it a little too much. I like the ending of it. I like that little child actor. She was actually really good. I thought she was not going to have a part because she didn't speak the rest of the movie, but when she did, she was pretty adorable. She was an adorable little actor, and I think she's going to play a very big role later on, because I think, if I'm wrong, that she is Eternity. I feel like she is the embodiment of Eternity that's now going to be in the MCU, I think. So that's my theory on that, so she could be playing a much bigger part on that. It was really cool to see Hercules in one of the end credit scenes. I know he's supposed to be a pretty major player down the line too. There's a lot of rumors that he's going to show up in Thunderbolts or some team like that. I was surprised the actor they picked. He didn't really seem like he really fit the role. I think that's just because I'm so used to seeing Hercules a certain way. I've seen him look a certain way my whole life that this just is a little bit outside the box. So it was just a little surprising they picked that, but not a bad thing. I'm excited to see where they go with that character. So those are a lot of things that I pointed out that I didn't really like, but things I did like was overall, like I said, I enjoyed the movie. It was a very funny movie, and I was expecting comedy. Taika Waititi, he definitely has that going for him. Ragnarok was the same way. It wasn't nearly as far as that. It wasn't jokes all the time. There was just a few kind of hidden in there, but they were really funny, so it was a funny movie. This seemed like it was just definitely a comedy. That just seemed like what it was. I was happy to see a lot of the characters returning. I still wish there was more Guardians, but even though they were only in for a little bit, it was still really cool to see them because we haven't seen them in a movie in years. It's been since, what, Infinity War. They were in Endgame for like a split second, but Infinity War, since we've really seen them play a part in a movie. So it was really cool to see them again. That was very exciting. Overall, I'm always excited for MCU stuff, but I don't think this movie is going to be a major player as far as the overall arcing storyline. This kind of seemed just like a side story. From what I understand, that Gore is dead, which again is surprising, and the Necrosword broke. And that was supposed to be, the Necrosword is from the god of the symbiotes, Noel. So he's the one that had that sword. So I thought maybe they'd tie in symbiotes to this, and they didn't. So that was kind of a bummer. But I don't think this is going to lead anywhere. I don't think we're going to see Gore again. Jane Foster's dead. All the other Asgardians are dead. It's Thor's going to be around, but I don't think this movie is going to play a big part in the overall scene. So that makes it not quite as exciting to see part of the story unfold. So I think it was just an isolated thing, but still good. So, all that being said, overall, I'm going to give this movie a 6 out of 10. It's back to the first thing I said, definitely enjoyable and entertaining movie, but would I say it's like a good movie, like a well-rounded story, all the aspects of it were good? Not really. It wasn't bad, it was better than okay, but just by a little bit, so that's why I'm giving it a 6 out of 10. But as always, let me know what you think. Feel free to disagree with me. That's perfectly fine. All I ever ask for people in the comments is be respectful to each other. But yeah, let me know your thoughts in the comments, what you'd like to see, what you liked about it, what you didn't like about it, and we'll talk about it there. So once again, thank you all for watching and supporting, and I'll see you on the next video. Love you all. Peace.